we have a new release of Raspberry Pi OS. The first step is to go to the website under the software section, then find Raspberry Pi OS, see the full version 25.11.04, and download it. We use Raspberry Pi Imager, select the device, then the operating system we downloaded, choose SD card, and click Next. The settings are important, so we edit them, enter the hostname, check the internet connection and SSH settings, and apply the changes. Then the recording will begin. Raspberry Pi OS is a bit different because it doesn't have an installer, so we use the app. In my case, I have an NVMe drive that I will use. The second step is optional if you don't have an NVMe drive. If you do have one, we will use RPA Imager to save an image that will change the bootloader to the SD card and start the process. Remember to use a second SD card. Once the process is done, insert the second SD card into the Raspberry Pi and wait for the light to blink. The third step is to insert the SD card with the operating system into the Raspberry Pi and power it on. Wait for the system to configure and load. The fourth step is optional. If you have an NVMe drive, go to the menu, select Accessories, then SD card copier, selecting the SD card and the NVMe drive. We do this because, by default, the Raspberry Pi boots from the SD card, not from an NVMe drive. You don't need to configure anything else, just using RPA Imager will do the job. The fifth step is optional. If you have an NVMe drive, go to RPA Imager with the second SD card, and now, instead of selecting SD card, select NVMe/USB boot. Once the recording is done, put the SD card back into the Raspberry Pi and power it on. Wait for the power light to blink, indicating the bootloader has been changed. The sixth step is to remove the SD card and leave only the NVMe drive in the Raspberry Pi, then power it on. Wait for the system to configure and load the operating system. Now that we're in our final system, we open the terminal and increase the font size to improve visibility, also adjusting the window size. In the terminal, we update the system and check if Fastfetch, Sysbench, and Firefox are installed. Only Firefox is installed. We proceed to install Fastfetch and Sysbench, which will help us get general system information and run performance tests, respectively. We run Fastfetch, which provides information such as the OS, kernel, packages, memory, and disk. One of the changes we found in this version is the Wayland compositor labo. Then, using commands, we check the distribution information, kernel, memory, and hard drive, which are consistent with Fastfetch. Next, we check if the system is affected by the Y2038 bug, and yes, it is supported. Then we check the boot time with system deanalyze and see it boots in 11 seconds. We run Sysbench, starting with the CPU using a single thread, then with 5 threads to test the processor's performance and mathematical operations. As a result, compared to the previous version, it has 2,634 events per second with 1 thread and 10,591 with 5 threads, showing good concurrency handling. Next, we test the threads and mutex to check concurrency and locking performance. Again, we see significant improvements in the results. We get 628 events per second with threads and 13.96 events per second with mutex, values higher than in the previous version. Now, we proceed to test memory read and write performance to evaluate how well the system handles memory operations. The results were 4.36 GB per second for reading and 3.66 for writing, values similar to the previous version. Next, we prepare the necessary files to test the disk read and write performance in order to evaluate the disk input and output operations. The results are slightly higher than the previous version, with 48 MB per second for reading and 32 for writing. Now, we run the top command to check the memory consumption when opening Firefox with one tab, then opening a second tab with a video. Then we open a third and fourth tab, observing the memory consumed with each new tab. On average, it uses 373 MB per tab, a very notable value. Next, we check the versions of Labook, verify the execution of Alacart, and check the versions of Chromium and Firefox, as these are mentioned in the release notes. Once the evaluation of Raspberry Pi OS version 2025-11.04 is complete, we did a comparison between Bookworm and Trixie in a previous video, and the suggestion was to stick with Bookworm. In conclusion, the new version of Raspberry Pi OS is lightweight, efficient, and based on the performance tests, it has improved significantly compared to previous versions. That's it for now. We will continue testing other distributions. If you liked the video, give it a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. See you soon.